Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this conference, and thank you for coming this morning. It's such a beautiful day on a Friday morning where people probably also would have other things to do. We really appreciate that. Indeed, I would like to look at two bilateral relationships since the Cold War, but especially during the Obama era and now. First, the so-called special relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States, and then the question, because there has been a lot of talk, especially during the Obama era, didn't sort of the United States pivot to Germany as the major partner in Europe, and will this continue, especially in the post-Brexit situation? And I will argue that this was indeed the case, but that there are also important arguments for the resilience of the special relationship, especially when it's understood in the original Churchillian way, which I will mention in a minute. I want to say something about how the Germans view the German Marshall Funds, often wrongly, and I think Nicolas' organization has something to do with that. It was the German Marshall Fund of the United States was created with a starting grant by the West German government of Willy Brandt in 1972, not because of that, but partly because of that. If you would ask people on the street in Germany today what the Marshall Plan is, most of them might think that it was a program just designed for West Germany. To help West Germany get back on its feet. And very few people know that the name is the European Recovery Program, and that it extended, of course, also very much to the United Kingdom, which, despite being on the winning side of World War II, was also economically devastated, needed it as much as we did. And so this, I think, is the link. Now, the special relationship between US and the United Kingdom, some people date it back to the period of the late 19th century when the US, after this 100 years of isolation we heard about in the first panel, became sort of imperialist, acquired the Philippines, and heeded the call of Britain in joining them in the imperial experiment. But as a concept, it was really introduced by Winston Churchill in his famous Iron Curtain speech at Fulton, Missouri, at Westminster College on March 5th, 1946. And I will quote this short part of it where he mentions it. Neither the sure prevention of war nor the continuous rise of world organizations, he was referring to the United Nations, will be gained without what I have called the fraternal association of the English-speaking peoples. This means, and now comes the word, a special relationship between the British Commonwealth and Empire in the United States. And then he went on to make it more precise, and especially defining it through defense and intelligence cooperation. But remember that he never made it exclusive to the United Kingdom. And I think in the Churchillian notion, this might also be the future of that relationship. So what are the foundations? Of course, it's more than just realpolitik. A shared common law heritage was emphasized at the time more than today, but I think it's still very important when you look at things that how individual countries relate to international law. Mutual economic investments, although here, if we had statistics, we would see that perhaps Germany is replacing the United Kingdom as the place right now where Americans invest most. The UK is still a bit ahead, but this might change in the post-Brexit situation. Then diplomatic and security ties, especially intelligence sharing. English-speaking countries share a common set of values and beliefs, it is believed, and defense contracts. US competition for British defense contract was an essential part. The British nuclear deterrent is basically an American led deterrent, leads to Britain. Now, why was there talk then, starting especially with the Obama period, about what sometimes Politico has dubbed the Spezial relationship, so writing special in the German way with a Z in the middle instead of a C. One of these reasons, and you could see it re-emphasized yesterday when Barack Obama appeared together with Angela Merkel in front of the Brandenburg Gate at the church meeting of the Protestant churches in Germany. He said during his power that the German leader was my closest partner as president. He has emphasized that over and over again, during and even after his presidency. So that is Also, I think more and more people in Germany are trying to create this narrative and emphasizing that 60 million Americans claim German ancestry. And this is more than the number who trace ancestry if you would divide the British Isles. So Ireland has 33 million, England 25 million. So if you do not take the British Isles together, then the German Americans are the strongest American force. And also a lot of German politicians, especially those who are very emotional pro-Europeans, who want deeper integration, like our MEP, Member of Parliament, Elmar Brok, he has said if Brexit would happen, he said that Britain would then only be a strategically insignificant island in the Atlantic. So there is a lot of self-consciousness also among even a jingoistic view, if I could use this, in Germany, that we are the country that counts. And actually left of center press in England, like The Guardian, they sort of share this view. So what else next to Obama's declaration is the substance? So remember, where did Obama appear outside the United States during his campaign in 2008? Not in London, not in Paris, not in Prague, in Berlin. At that time, until yesterday, he wasn't allowed to speak in front of the Brandenburg Gate, and Merkel denied it in 2008, but he assembled 250,000 people. And he went to Berlin because of Germany's geographic and geostrategic location. He wanted to appear in a country that had clout in Central and especially Eastern Europe and Russia. So Germany, I think, became Obama's indispensable ally because of its economic might, its political influence in Europe, and especially in the eastern part of the continent, way until China, and of course, as I said, its geographic location. So under Obama, and this might also be due to the current president of the German Marshall Fund, who was a major advisor of Obama on European affairs, Karen Donfried, who also was fluent in German, Germany became the cornerstone of his European policy. Still, the United States have 179 military bases in Germany, more than in any other country in the world, and there are bases that are not there to protect Germany, but are for the strategic outlook of the US, such as Ramstein Air Base, for instance. This is an air base for connecting to the Middle East, not for protecting Germany. There's still 40,000 soldiers in Germany, and it's very clear that Angela Merkel mattered more in DC, and probably under Trump, I'll say a few words towards the end, mattered a lot more than either Gordon Brown, if people remember him as Prime Minister, or David Cameron. With Trump and May, this might change again, but it's a bit early. So I think from 2007 to 2016, Britain's standing in Washington was on the slide. And this had to do also with the feared breakup of the UK, the botched vote on Syria in the British Parliament 2013, which then led also that the Americans would not do anything, even though Assad had crossed the so-called red line with the chemical weapons. Britain's army had faced military problems both in Iraq, in Basra, and in Helmand province in Afghanistan, and then, of course, Brexit. So the talk of the major Obama advisors, and I once talked to Ivo Daalder, who used to be his NATO ambassador, he said UK is too focused on its internal affairs, and they're becoming irrelevant. So that was the thinking, I think, in the Obama people. So the special relationship became less special, but also other traditional allies, I think, were losing in importance. Israel and Japan, for instance, during the Obama era. And again, that's being reversed, I think, under Trump. Also, what has been the major asset of the special relationship for the United States was that Britain's willingness to support US foreign policy almost unconditionally, like under Blair, to his detriment, is not so important in modern warfare. Drone warfare is unilateral. Drone warfare doesn't need other boots on the ground, and this was the favorite type of warfare that Obama did. He explained that yesterday, actually, and didn't get booed, unlike Merkel, who got booed when she mentioned drones, which is kind of funny. But now come the ifs, why I think Germany cannot easily replace Britain and will not replace it. Roughly 45% of Germans have an unfavorable view of the United States. This is changing. This has regional differences, more in East Germany than in former West Germany. Nowhere in Europe are people more critical, even hostile towards Silicon Valley, especially Facebook and Google. Austria is maybe another example. We are pushing the hard line against these companies in the European Union. Germans are obsessed with data privacy, and that's why they see these companies, but we have nothing to offer of our own. We don't have these. TTIP opposition was stronger in Germany than in almost any other large EU country, with the possible exception of France. Unlike Trump's opposition against free trade, this is not driven by concern for jobs or loss of national sovereignty. It was driven by chlorine chicken, frankenfood, and environmental concerns. So very different from, in Britain, they have concerns about the NHS, but they're quite relaxed about TTIP. And they will get their bilateral deal. Also, in Germany, a very different narrative why the Cold War ended and why the EU is necessary prevails. In Germany, a lot of people think, especially left of center, that d'entente with the Soviet Union and Ostpolitik were the reasons, and not US military might and economic pressure why the Cold War ended. Also, a lot of people, most of my students, and maybe that's true for the young Czech students as well, believe that the reason why there's peace in Europe is the EU, and why we shouldn't jeopardize it. In Britain, most people think it's NATO, pure and simple, and that the EU has nothing to do with it. So again, here, I think the narratives, and US, it sort of also goes more into the British way, I think. The Germans also demand less and less intervention of the United States in Iraq and Afghanistan, but then we are disappointed when the US actually doesn't act, like in Syria. Yeah. Also, more and more German politicians, even though the government is raising our defense budget closer to the 2%, we're at 1.3, but Martin Schulz, the leading candidate of the Social Democrat, has said yesterday we should actually reduce it, and that this 2% makes no sense. Again, this does not align us very much with the United States. So I think there are many obstacles, and there's also a group in the German business community, especially in the export business, who think that Russia and China are in the long term far more important markets, and our foreign policy should, Stephen Sabo has written a good book on how German, the Ostausschuss of the German Business Association sees Russia in purely economic terms, and Chancellor Merkel has stood up against them, but how long will this last? So I think there are a lot of things that will not contribute that Germany is replacing the United States. Why do I think that the special relationship can remain or can become resilient or is resilient? So far, the special relationship has repeatedly confounded expectations about its imminent demise. It has gone through several crises from Suez until in the more contemporary time, but the common stabilizers, I think, of the Anglo-US relationship remain intact. There's also scholarship in the constructivist field, which I usually are critical of, but in this sense I think they have a point, which says there's something like the ontological security needs of states. And my colleague Kai Oppermann from the University of Sussex has worked on this, which means states need a stable sense of self-identity, a reassuring narrative. And for Britain and the United States, this is not the EU. For Britain, it was never the EU. And they don't get it from the United Nations either. It's like a protective cocoon, and the special relationship, if you extend the UK to the other English-speaking nations, even to some of the post-colonial nations, not just the white Commonwealth, you get this sort of ontological security need, where I think the ontological security need of Germany is now more and more exclusively the EU, and exclusively lies in the deepening of the Eurozone. And again, it's not clear whether this is really in the interest of the United States, especially of the current government. And I'm also, and this, I'll finish with that, there are some interesting polls taken both in Britain and the United States about the future of the special relationship in post-Brexit, and half of the British population approved of Theresa May's fast and for something that was humiliating, but half of the population thinks that she was right to pursue a close relationship with the incoming president because this is in the best interests of Britain, and to see him right away. And I can't show it on the slides, but there are two polls that were conducted just in March of this year, and they are surprising because in the United States, 52% of the population say they think that the special relationship is important and will be more than actually in the UK. And they're only 43%. And this also goes against the prevailing opinion that nobody in the US takes the special relationship serious. And when asked, and this is my last point, will Brexit harm the special relationship? In Britain, 60% said no. In the United States, 58%, and only 14 to 20% say it will harm the relationship. So I think also in the general public, the old special relationship is alive, but I think it has to be broadened, it will be broadened to more countries than just the United Kingdom. Thank you very much.